better thank God for that. There's hope. You see, just like me, he wanted to sing, he had but that didn't keep him from seeing the light, he said. There's hope. It doesn't cost a thing to smile. You don't have to stay alive. You better thank God for that. There's hope. It doesn't cost a thing to smile. You don't have to stay alive. You better thank God for that. There's hope. 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 It doesn't cost a thing to smile. You don't have to stay alive. You better thank God for that. There's hope. It doesn't cost a thing to smile. You don't have to stay alive. You better thank God for that. There's hope. Stand up for your right. Keep shining your light. Just show the world the sign. Stand up for your right. Keep shining your light. Just show the world your sign. There's hope. It doesn't cost a thing to smile. You don't have to stay alive. You better thank God for that. There's hope. It doesn't cost a thing to smile. You don't have to stay alive. You better thank God for that. There's hope. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1,
District 9 is bringing Derby Day to Birmingham, and it's your time to show up and show out. Join us at the Inslee Tuxedo Ballroom Saturday, May 7th for the Derby Party presented by Counselor Latanya Tate. Come dressed to impress in your best Derby attire. Show-stopping hats and experience top-level entertainment, live racing on large-screen TVs, and, of course, high fashion. This event is free and open to the public. It's Derby Day, sponsored by District 9, Saturday, May 7th from 2 until 7 p.m. at Inslee Tuxedo Ballroom.
Happy Monday to each of you, and this is our show Perspective. And as always, I'm glad to have each of you tuning in this evening. As you all know, for those of y'all who say we just can't get enough perspective, well, you're in luck. Starting this week, you will see me on Mondays and Tuesdays as we're getting ready for our primary election, which takes place in just a few short weeks on Tuesday, May the 24th. So I encourage you to tag everyone tonight. Several of the candidates that we will have on over the course of these short weeks live in your districts, and you need to know who you are, who is running to get your vote, and you need to know what they're about. So this is something that we have gone that extra mile to make sure that you have that information too. So we're going to go ahead and get started shortly. Hello to everyone who's watching tonight, and keep in mind that if I don't recognize you, I don't know that you're watching. So let me go ahead and get those shout outs out. Mama Diane, good to see you on. Mom and Dad, good to see you on. My oldest sister in Atlanta, Monica, love you. Good to see you on. And thanks each of you for tuning in. And that announcement that you heard before we started, Counselor Latanya Tate in District 9, they're doing Derby style this Saturday. We'll be hearing more information about that. I'm going to try to see if I can get Counselor Tate on, or someone from her office, to talk with us tomorrow during our forum, so you can get more information about that. But the entire event is free. That's right, the entire event is free. Her team and her staff have worked extra hard to give you a memorable moment. Deidre Gaddis will be the performance, and it's going to take place at the Tuxedo Ballroom in the beautiful downtown Ensley. So again, you'll be hearing more information about that tonight and tomorrow. So as I stated, this is our time that we're getting ready for our primary election. And tonight we're going to have two candidates on that are running for Jefferson County School Board. School board is a vital part of the race because it's dealing with our children and education. So our first guest tonight, Mr. Robert L. Mardis. He is running for Jefferson County School Board, and after I introduce him, he will be with us for 40 minutes tonight. And then the last half, Tarji Ransaw will be with us. She's also a candidate for school board. And we're just going to talk about them tonight. You will have the option to ask your questions towards the end of the time with each candidate. So if you do have questions, go ahead and post them in the comment section. Thank those who've already shared this, if you will continue to share this. So our first guest tonight, Robert Mardis, he is the president, former vice president of Birmingham Young Democrats. He is the vice president of Alabama Young Democrats. He is a member of SDEC and JCDEC. He is the co-chair of youth development for Alabama. He is the former president of the UAB College Democrat, and he is also a volunteer with literacy as a mentor for the Empower Mentoring. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I do bring to you our first guest tonight, Mr. Robert L. Mardis III.
How's it going, everybody? Thanks for having me on.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And first, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us tonight. I don't take that lightly. So the first question that I do want to ask, in just a few words, tell us, who is Robert L. Mardis III?
I'm your average citizen who has sat back and watched some of the devastation that has plagued our communities. And I think we all can recognize that the foundation to a secure society starts with education. So a little bit about who I am and why I chose to start on the school board is because I think that I had the opportunity to live in a two-parent household. I had the opportunity to see what tough love is. And I think that a lot of these kids are missing that aspect of tough love.
Okay, sorry, I was muted. Failed to mention, if Robert wins this seat, he will make history not only as the first Democrat to hold this seat, but as the first African-American male to serve on the Jefferson County School Board. So we are rooting for you. And then at the end, for those of you who would like to support him, possibly canvass with him, and other ways that you could volunteer, we will allow Robert to talk about how you can get involved. So let's start off. I always ask my candidates this. What made you, again, I know you answered briefly, but what made you decide to run? Because I know, looking especially at school boards, there has to be something that you saw that you was like, no, we've been dealing with this long enough. That's not going to cut it. But what was that thing or things that made you say, no, I'm putting my name in this hat. I'm the man for the job. What was that breaking moment for you?
Actually, this is my second time running for the school board. I ran in 2018 for this same seat. And it's the same scenario. I want to address financial literacy. When we look at this younger generation, I'm a millennial myself, but millennials and Gen Z, we all have that entrepreneurial spirit. And we're not teaching these kids financial literacy. And even for those who are not seeking that entrepreneurial aspect of life, every person, whether you're the poorest or whether you're the most lucrative industry, you're going to need to know how to balance your accounts. And I think that when we're sending these kids out of high school, they don't have the foundation to draw from to actually live a sustainable life. So I call it dummy money, that we all spend when we're younger. Dummy, why did you spend that money? And I think if we can teach these kids financial nuances that can teach them the difference between able to afford something versus just buying it, I think it would be advantageous to giving them a firmer financial step up in the world, especially if we're not going to raise the minimum wage. At least we can teach kids to maximize the purchasing power of every dollar that they get.
Absolutely. And I do agree with you on that because I remember, I don't think we're that far from each other in age, but I remember when we were in school, we had programs such as Junior Achievement, which was a fantastic program because it did teach those early principles on saving and making sure that you budget. And I do think that programs like that, they are missing and they're still vital. If you get elected, do you intend to, I'm not going to say reinvent because that has already been invented, but do you plan to bring a program such as that or similar to our students if you're elected to this seat?
Yes, sir. So there's actually a program out called My Classroom Economy.
Okay.
This program starts as early as kindergarten and it stays with these students until the 12th grade. Um, the synopsis of the program is in kindergarten, they'll be given a classroom job designated by each teacher. So each classroom will be its own individual economy. So the teacher will give this kindergarten student a classroom job, and that student will in turn be paid monopoly money. They'll pay rent on their desk, or they can buy an extra 15 minutes of recess or other little trinkets from the teacher. In kindergarten, this program is just designed to teach them to take care of their responsibilities first, as opposed to their wants. Now, as you go through school, it's going to elevate or compound on itself. Obviously, by the time you get to 12th grade, but not 12th grade, but high school, you're paying a mortgage instead of paying rent. So you're going to be taught how to establish credit, how to maintain your credit, how to utilize your credit to your benefit, and you'll learn how to get a mortgage, how to get a car loan. You'll learn how to play the stock market in this program. You will learn financial life 101 from a financial standpoint through this program.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. I love it. And we're definitely going to come back to that. A few other areas I wanted to talk to you about, and a lot of these may be issues that you hear in other city school systems, but these are things that parents and voters want to know your stance on. When we talk about bullying, I know it's something like I just stated. We've heard it in Birmingham City Schools, Hoover, Trussville City Schools, even across the world. No city school is exempt from this. So, how do you plan to address the issue of bullying, working with our administrators and teachers and students and parents to make sure that every student that sets foot in a Jefferson County school is safe? And if there's a thing of bullying, it will be addressed.
Okay. So I'll use the scenario of Lean on Me. When Joe Clark came into that school, the first thing he did was remove the disturbances of misbehaved students. Now, I do not want to expel these students. I don't think expelling students and sending them off into the streets to create more criminals is a solution. But I do think we have to remove these troubled students away from these traditional classroom settings and have them in an additional classroom setting so that they can still receive the same educational level, but don't cause a disturbance and distraction for the students there who are trying to learn, but especially for the ones that they're picking on, because being bullied in school, that does have a lasting impact on someone's life and their quality of life. And each individual is made up differently. So you don't know the exact trauma that is being caused to an individual student through the bullying of a particular student. So I think that we have to take this very seriously. And I think that we have to do what we can to protect these students. And one of those things would be to remove some of these students that are constantly, and I don't mean once or twice, but you're constantly, you're known as the school bully. Once we can address that.
Gotcha. Another issue, and for those who have been watching the news, this is something we've just seen recently. There is a drastic decline at the end of this school year in May. There's said to be an even higher decline of teachers who are saying, hey, I don't care if I have the years to retire. I'm getting out of this. I'm going to find a new career. And those teachers that can retire, they're leaving. So sadly, we're losing a lot of good teachers who really care about the students and the parents. What plan would you have in place to give those teachers support, and not only support, resources that they need to teach, and that they would be excited about going to work and staying on the job?
I think the first step is we actually have to sit down with the teachers, the school board, and the administrators in these schools and find out what is the core issue. I know one of the bigger issues is the pay, and I'm on board with pay increases for teachers. These teachers have to deal with a lot of nuances, and it's not just teaching or educating students. It is sometimes you're playing mommy, daddy, you're playing therapist. That can dwell on a person who is not being compensated financially. And it's sad to see that you have teachers who, because my sister, she's actually almost finished with becoming a teacher. This was a passion of hers. So most people who go into teaching go in it for the passion of educating these students. So we as administrators, we have to sit down with these teachers and find out, why are they leaving? What has killed that passion in you to want to do this job? And how can we take the steps to actually correct them? And if any teacher comes forward, we can't hold that against some kind of retaliatory action if they say something that we don't like. So I'm telling you now, for all the teachers, you can speak to Robert Mardis III overtly with any problems that are in the school system, and let's work those out together. It can be anonymously, or you can do it either way.
Awesome. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're just tuning in, you are watching Perspective Meet the Candidate. We are talking to Robert L. Mardis III, who is seeking for a seat on Jefferson County School Board. And Robert, go ahead and tell us what district you're actually running for.
So I'm running for Jefferson County School Board District 3. That comprises of Centerpoint, Irondale, Pinson, and Fultondale.
Okay. So if you're in those areas, and I'm going to have him to show it, say that again before we end his segment with him. But if you're in those areas, say those areas one more time for me, Robert.
Centerpoint, Pinson, Irondale, and Fultondale.
So if you're in those areas, or you know someone in those areas, that's who we're talking to tonight. And we will do the same thing with Ms. Ransaw when she comes on. She will be saying her districts, so you could know, hey, that's my candidate. I need to really listen to see what he has to offer. So again, if he's elected, he will be the first Democrat that sits in this seat. And then he will also be the first African-American male ever to sit on the Jefferson County School Board. Next question, let's talk about the free lunch program. We know this is something that we've heard going back and forth, not just locally, but nationwide. Do you feel that every child should be entitled to receive free lunch? And if you do, talk about your plan in place to work with your constituents on the school board to make this a reality.
I think it depends on the school district. I mean, if you, and this is outside of this district, but in a district like a Hoover school system, with the income in that area, no. But in some of the Jefferson County school systems and some of the other school systems in Alabama, most definitely, those kids, and look at the price of food now. I went to go buy some chicken, and I thought I was buying steak the other day. So the food prices are getting expensive. So so I think that's going through a day's worth of school and not being properly nourished, it does drain your attention span. So I think that if we can spend $623 million on building new prisons, we can feed the children.
Absolutely. And I do see questions coming in the comments. Continue to post your questions. And like I stated, we will take the last 5 minutes to make sure that we get those questions answered. The high school dropout rate. This is something that we've seen for years. And I do know that students, they drop out for various reasons. Sometimes life happens. Sometimes, unfortunately, like you stated, due to their home situation, they may have to drop out of school to, in fact, help mom, dad, or big mama, or grandmama take care of the home. So unfortunate, you do have a lot of students that do have to drop out for various reasons, or it just depends on the situation. But what is your plan working with your constituents to decrease that dropout rate?
I think it comes back to, we have to create this culture once again of it takes a village to raise a child. I think a lot of these kids drop out because most kids are so short-sighted. Most kids are not planning 10, 15, 20 years down the line, and they only see the now. We as adults, we have to, I'm almost at the point to where I don't think we should allow students to drop out because we know the detriment that it causes. I don't think a 16-year-old, 17-year-old kid should be making a decision to that magnitude that's going to impact their lives for the next foreseeable future. I think us as adults, we have to step in and do all that we can to make it to where it is impossible for these students to drop out and give them a little bit of a tough love because they're going to need a high school diploma at the very least. The days of dropping out of school and getting a job and supporting yourself, they're over.
Absolutely. And I guess this would be a second part to that previous question I asked you. How do you plan to work with parents in your district? I guess sort of you would call it like a check-in just to make sure everything is working in the home, because as you know, you were talking about Lean on Me earlier. For those who seen the movie, and it was just on yesterday, I think pretty much everybody's seen that movie. There was a particular scene where Principal Clark, he actually went to the home of a student with his assistant principal, and in going to that home they found out, based on what the student told them, that after talking to her and her mother, there was some really deep issues that they need to investigate and sit down and work a solution to. How important is it first that you think we would that we do that, and then what type of plan do you have in place once you become elected to put that plan in place?
So I think we have to listen to the students as far as what is their home life like. There are some telltale signs that some students are not in the best living conditions. I mean, there was a story out, I think it was Summerton, not too long ago, and these particular kids were beating on their grandmother at the encouragement of their parents. So there are some telltale signs with seeing how students interact with authority figures, how to interact with their peers, to see kind of what their home life is like. And I think we have to take the opportunity to listen to students. I think if we actually listened, they'll tell you most of the time what their situations are. But I think that um, at the end of the day, it's going to be hard to police someone else's home. I mean, we don't have the resources to, uh, as much as I wish we did, we just don't have the resources to, knock on every single door and get a welfare check on every single student's living condition, because even some of the telltale signs don't tell it all. I mean, you could be a straight A student and have the worst upbringing, and be a student that statistically you would say came from a horrible household, that could be any more true. So I think that that's a tough issue to tackle.
All right, and then let's take a moment to talk about some of the other issues that you're running on, which I think are all great issues. So the first thing, summer initiatives. Um, there's been in the news, and of course you and I know this. There's always been a fear of teachers with the summer break that we have. They wonder, when school starts back in August, will students be behind, or will students be at a pace where it's easy to start teaching them in the next grade that they're promoted to? If you're elected, what kind of plans do you have in place to, I guess, not necessarily make sure that a student spends his or her summer break doing schoolwork, but what plans in place do you have to make sure that when that student returns to school in August, that they are ready to do the necessary schoolwork, and that there won't be so much of a problem with the teacher having to reteach things that student should have already learned from the previous grade that he was in?
So I don't know if you remember, but back when you and I was growing up, there was a program here in Birmingham called NYSP, National Youth Sports Program. It's a free summer
Mhm.
camp. And this program, it did exactly that. Part of the day, you got your athletics in and got to play games, swimmers at Lawson and Miles College. And part of the day, you actually went through various different core subjects of school. Um,
Mhm.
I think we can bring back something like that. And I'm going to say it again. If we have $623 million to invest into building prisons, we can surely find money to invest into programs that will educate students, give these students hope that they can be successful, that probably will result in less criminals being produced in the first place. So we can make the investment on the back end and build a prison, or we can make the investment on the front end and invest into programs that gets these kids out of the streets in the summer times, as well as keeping them up to their educational grade level.
Awesome. Introducing esports. This is something else that you're running on. We're running on, and I thought this was pretty exciting. We do have a, I'm gonna say small, but I think we're gonna continue to see a rise. We do have a few esports arenas in Birmingham and surrounding cities. So if this was able to be introduced in Jefferson County school system, this would be a new and exciting thing, and it would actually make you stand out against other school systems. Kind of talk about your plan and the need for our students to have access to esports while they're in school?
So if you look at Miles College, they actually just started their esports. But the reason I want to put esports in schools is to get the kids excited. If you look at these kids in this generation, they'll sit online and watch other kids play video games. Now, as you mentioned, this industry is growing. Now, the players in the professional video game leagues now, they're making millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars. If something can be monetized, the collegiate level will pick it up. Eventually, scholarships are going to be given to kids to go to college on video game scholarships because the video game industry is becoming a $1 billion industry. And we hold these students to the same standards that we hold traditional athletes to. I think that will show an increase in attendance, that'll show an increase in performance in schoolwork, because most kids are gonna wanna compete in this video game league because we already play each other online for unofficial bragging rights. So I think this will put some competitive spirits into the schools, get kids excited, and give them a reason to come to school. And at the very least, it keeps a lot of more children off the streets for a few extra hours before mom or dad can get home.
Absolutely. In talking about making your school system, when we're talking about high school students, Birmingham City, what they've done, I'm sure everyone knows this. We talked about it on the podcast several times. All of their high schools are career academy schools. So you have such as your school for tourism and hospitality, your school for arts and dance, your school for engineering, construction, and I think there's one that I'm missing. When thinking about Jefferson County high schools, do you feel that implementing these in Jefferson County high schools would be helpful to students? That way, this would provide somewhat of an idea on the career paths that students can take once they're complete with high school, where they could actually get that hands-on working in these fields.
Yeah, so I definitely think Jefferson County needs to expand on some of the things that Birmingham City has done. When I was in high school, for example, minor high school had cosmetology to where they would actually send students from Harrytown and Pleasant Grove to this school. So we can do something similar to that. So what I'm saying is every school isn't going to have the room to expand to these different facilities needed to house these programs. But we can create a network in-house for Jefferson County school systems to where you may have auto mechanics at this school and you may have STEM programs at this school that we can kind of, you choose to take these electives and we'll send you to this school. It may not be your regular school, but you still get that same opportunity to go through these things. Because if you look at, for example, the trucking industry, there's a shortage right now on truck drivers. Now, these folks are making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. We can send them through a simulated program that Jefferson State actually has a simulator where they can actually come out to your school to show you how to drive 18 wheelers. Now, you can't get your certified CDLs. You still have to go through that actual road test, but you can get a lot of this preliminary work out of the way before you graduate. Same thing with welding and plumbing. There's a ton of avenues that we can take to get these kids an actual career path or the college path and let them choose which one suits them better, because every kid's not going to college. Every kid doesn't want to go to college, and every kid doesn't need to go to college to be successful. And I think we can take steps to show kids that there are different ways that you can be successful in life as opposed to the traditional avenues we've been teaching.
Okay, good stuff. I like it. When we talk about Governor Kay Ivey's reading initiative, of course, which was put on hold this year, that states that if a child isn't reading at a third grade level by the time they should be promoted to the fourth grade, they could be held back. What are your thoughts on this possible bill that could be passed next year? And tell me first, what are your thoughts on it, and then we'll kind of talk in between.
That sounds a lot to me like George Bush's failed No Child Left Behind policy. It's not going to yield tangible results. All it's going to do is create an embarrassment for students who falls victim to those programs. I think we can take real steps. There's ways to find out what a kid's grade level of reading is. We identify those who are subpar and we contact their parents, and we find some summer programs where they go to summer school to have the ability to increase their ability to read. But I don't think that holding them back to embarrass them when that next school year. That's just that kills their morale. That produces misbehaved students, because I was one of those students that struggled with reading in elementary school. But I was fortunate enough to have my dad, who would wake me up at 3 o'clock in the morning to read the newspaper to him. So and that's partially why, that's really the sole reason why I grew up to become a volunteer literacy tutor, was because I was one of those students that I would rather be the bad guy instead of having students laugh at me.
Absolutely. How successful do you think bringing a reading coach in to assist these students who struggle with reading, how successful do you think that would be?
I think it may be a little biased because I'm a literacy tutor, but you go through training and you're taught proven skills to help people learn how to read. So I actually spent a portion of my time being an adult literacy tutor, folks who are 21 years or older who weren't reading above a 6th grade level. And there's proven tactics that teach folks that have been taught how to read, but not effectively, to actually give them a better way to actually understand it. And it's amazing to see the difference in the excitement. And once you see that first wave of excitement of them figuring it out, the rest of it becomes almost just easier to grasp. So I definitely think bringing reading coaches in, especially if you can get that one-on-one behind closed door, and it's not an embarrassment now because it's one-on-one. And I think that'll be more tangible than, flunking them just because of something minute as that.
Parent involvement. I know this is probably one thing you've been asked since you said you were running again, probably when you ran before. But what plan do you have in place to increase parental involvement at each school in your district?
I think one of the things we have to do is, especially when you think about the board meetings, we have to make these times advantageous for parents to be able to make them. I mean, if you're in the morning, I'm at work, can't make it. So I think we need to have 2 different meetings so that parents can actually attend at least one. But we need to, but parents, I think most of the times right now, it's almost doesn't feel that inviting as a parent to come to a school these days. So I think it's the burden is on the administrators and the teachers and the school board and the parents to collectively come together and say that it isn't about us. This is about the best course of action that we can take to improve the educational standards of our children. Because at the end of the day, most people that are born in Jefferson County, they're going to live and die within a few mile radius of Jefferson County. So it's behooves all of us to be a part in making sure we're producing the best possible students, because they're going to eventually become the people who run our society. And I think if we have parental involvement, it gives us a better leverage to inspire these students to do stuff, because, most folks don't have as much respect for their teachers as they do their parents. So I think it's critical that we get parents on board and teachers on the same page, and kind of go back to the 1970s, almost to the regards of, if a teacher comes and says your child is misbehaving, even if you disagree with that teacher, you don't disagree with that teacher in front of your child. You wait and have that conversation on the side so they can see adults on the same page again, and let them know they can't play each other against each other.
Absolutely. So we have about 10 more minutes. And one of my last questions, if elected to this school board, I know a lot of times when people are placed in these positions, parents and students and teachers and administrators, we want a touchable candidate. If we see them out in public, at the grocery store, in the mall, that they're approachable, you can talk to them, not always about issues, because I know sometimes, when these people that are elected, when they're with their families, they just want that downtime. But even if it's just talk about everyday things, talk about how you plan to be touchable and reachable to everyone when elected to this seat.
Facebook, Instagram, public profiles, send me a message. Go like the page. I'll respond to messages. My cell phone number will be public. There will be email address. Feel free to send me a letter. I'm doing this because I want to affect change in our communities. So never feel like you can't reach me. You can find me. I'm always out and about in Birmingham in some event. Feel free to walk up to me, even if you do want to just discuss policy, because there's nothing like insight from a parent or from a constituent to think of things that I just won't be able to think of because I don't deal with that. So I welcome ideas. Because for me, I think the best way to move forward is to take your good idea, my good idea, combine them to make great ideas. So I'm always open to talk to anyone that makes sense.
Awesome. And before we started taking questions that I do see in, and if you haven't submitted a question and you're on tonight, and if Robert didn't mention anything that you want to know his stance on, you can go ahead and definitely mention those questions. Ask those questions now. What was my last question? I forgot about it just barely. Okay, is there anything that I didn't mention that you would like to speak on briefly?
I think we've pretty well covered the gist of the platform of the campaign, and I'm looking forward to some of these questions.
Okay. So our first question is, what are you going to do different from the previous board member?
Well, the first thing is I'm not going to be a racist because the current lady that is in this seat was actually asked by the community to resign. She refused. She was actually asked by her colleagues on the board to resign. She refused, and she is currently running for re-election. So the first thing is I won't be a racist, and it's not going to be whether you're black, white, green, or blue, or whether or not do I care about your student or this child in this school system.
Okay, and while I'm going to put this question down, that was actually something else that I thought about. So everyone watching the news is not a secret. If your child is in history or any, I'll say any class in school, the plan is for your child to not know all of his or her history. For instance, they can be told about the 16th Street bombing, but if certain laws are passed, they may or may not know that Klansmen were behind the bombing. They may know about the Children's March, but they may not know that it was racists and bigots that were police officers that were supposed to be protecting them that shot them with water hose and put them in jail. How do you feel about this? And if this bill is passed, how do you plan to work with educators in all of your schools and your districts to make sure that they are still able to educate their children properly without breaking the law?
That's going to be the tricky part, is how do you do it without breaking the law? And unfortunately, if this law is passed, it's almost going to put the onus on the parents to educate their children on real history. But what's the point of sending your child to school to be educated if they're not going to be told the right things? And I think it's imperative that we teach these kids real history, not just black students, but all students, because you can't truly appreciate where you're at if you don't know where you come from. And when we talk about racism, we talk about racism as if it's extinct. We talk about racism as if the Klansmen aren't still alive. And I don't mean this new era Klansmen. I mean John Lewis died in 2020 at the age of 80. He was 25 years old when he walked across that bridge. If he was 80 in 2020, that means those 15-year-old boys, they're in their 70s now. So those same folks that were beating John, they're still alive. Racism isn't gone. And I think so let me just be overt about it. I can understand the pushback from older white males not wanting this talk. Let's just be real about it.
Mm-hmm.
They know that their grandkids are more progressive and they would despise them for what they did to black folks. So that's the reason they don't want to teach this. But you can't lie and hide history in this digital age. It's not going anywhere. You might as well go ahead and come forth and put it on the table straightforward how it is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And our next question, in your opinion, how can you stop kids from dropping out of school?
In this current structure, there's no recourse. The only thing that we can try to do is inspire them while they're going through school, show them how difficult it could be. And I think that's one of the things that we can achieve through My Classroom Economy with teaching financial literacy, because it shows these kids exactly what amount of money they're going to need to live certain levels of lifestyle. and what variants of degrees or diplomas or degrees you'll need to obtain most of this money. So I think once these kids can start to physically see that dollar amount on that mortgage, that car note, that insurance, and how advantageous it is for them to have a diploma to obtain some of this stuff, I think this will kind of curb the trend of some students dropping out, but there's no legal recourse right now to stop any student once they reach a certain age to drop out.
All right, awesome. Two more questions, and then what we're going to do, we're going to allow you to tell folks how they can get involved with your campaign, and then we will release you for the evening. When we talk about arts, things such as drama, dance, music, there seems to be a decline in the amount of funding that our schools have been giving this down through the years. And when we talk about art, we're talking about visual arts, not just per se performing arts. If elected, how do you plan to make sure that all schools, especially middle schools and high schools, because those are the times when the students really get into these things, how do you plan to make sure that they receive adequate funding for these things?
I think we can achieve adequate funding by stressing the importance of the arts, because what is true intelligence? True intelligence to me is creativity, it's imagination. For you to be able to imagine something and create something that nobody else has ever done, that's intelligence. And the way that and through these art programs in school, you start to open up those little components in their minds to make people more creative, to think outside of the box. So I think if we can demonstrate how critically important it is for people to be creative, because if folks weren't creative, I wouldn't be able to talk on this video phone, this video messaging right now. So we have to hopefully get enough people to understand how important creativity is for our world, especially when we're moving into a technologically advanced world.
Absolutely. And our last question, happy early Mother's Day to the moms, all the moms watching. We'll be doing this today and tomorrow. When you think about your mom, or it may be someone other than your mom, in addition to your mom, when you think about your mom and the motherly figures in your life, what comes to your mind?
I didn't have that last part.
When you think about your mom and the special place that she holds in your heart, or it could be other motherly figures that have helped to shape and mold you as the man that you are, what comes to your mind? Can I take these last 2 minutes to share that with us?
I think what comes to mind, the first woman that any man is ever going to love is his mother. And I think it's a different type of love than any other person will ever give you. I think for most mothers, and I think I speak for most mothers, they'll do anything for their children. And I think, especially for a man to have that unconditional love from a woman, I think that builds character in him, and so not only shows him how to treat a woman, but I just think about the special place that my mom holds in my heart is just the fact that no matter what I do, I'm right. She's there. And I mean, I just don't see my mom not being there. I can't recall a time where I needed my mom and she weren't there. Now, she did make me suffer through some stuff, rightfully so, but that was for a lesson. And I do appreciate that. But I think I speak for everybody on earth, man. Your mom just holds a special place in your heart that you can't even articulate what they mean to you.
Absolutely. And our last question, this is a good one. So I'm going to kind of paraphrase it. There is a transgender school. It is not a Birmingham City school or Jefferson County school. It is a charter school, the Magic City Acceptance School. Thinking about the bill, the transgender bill, what are your thoughts on that? And how can you, if elected, make sure that every student in your district feels safe going to school, regardless of their gender or even sexual preference? And these are things that we have to talk about because these are real
Absolutely.
things that are in our schools. So let's talk about that for a few moments.
I think everybody has the right to live their life unencumbered of other people's opinions, as long as your actions don't cause harm or come at the unreasonable expense of other people. So when we talk about restrooms, for example, I don't necessarily think my personal opinion should be law at this moment. My personal opinion is that all of us as humans, we have to relieve ourselves eventually. So I think that we should be able to use any restroom, go in, wash our hands, and go on about our day. But we're not at that point in society right now to where it's going to create unnecessary problems, because there are people, we're putting trans folks in danger, because there are going to be people who just don't agree with them right now that are going to assault them just for being in here because they don't think they should be in here. Me personally, I think that a person should be able to go to a public restroom, use it, go on about your day, and enjoy your life. Now, when it comes to locker rooms, I do not agree with that. I think there should be biological female locker rooms, biological male locker rooms, and gender neutral locker rooms. And the reason being is because most women are not going to be comfortable with us as males in their space while they're in their birthday suits. So I definitely think in locker room situations that there should be a difference. As far as when it comes to trans sports, competing in sports, there is no fair play. Sports are not fair. We can agree with that. But we've taken steps to make them as fair as possible. So if you look at Pee Wee football, you have the 75-pound, the 85-pound, the 95-pound. If you look at basketball and baseball in Little League, there's age ranges for you to participate. If you look at the professional sporting leagues, there's a weight class in boxing, MMA, and wrestling. Now, Floyd Mayweather will never be the heavyweight champ of the world because his skill set does not overcompensate that physical difference. There is a physical difference between someone that goes through puberty and as a male and someone that goes through puberty as a woman. So in that regards, no, because it is unfair to these women who train their whole lives to be the best that they can be. You're going to come in second place or third place. And no disrespect to anyone, but Flojo is the fastest woman to ever run. Her Olympic time for the world record does not qualify her to run with the males. There are literally high school boys who have run faster. There's a difference in biological, and we have to accept that. But let me be crystal clear about this. Trans people have every right to live, every right to exist. And I think if you can't love them, like them. If you can't like them, at least leave them alone.
Wow. Good way to end. I love it. I love it. So go ahead and tell people we are 22 days out from the primary election. Go ahead and tell people how they can get involved. And what I'll do, I will go ahead and link your website to the podcast at the end of the show.
You can reach us at Robert L. Mardis III. That is across all of my social media platforms, except for Instagram. It is just Robert Mardis III. You can send us an email at rmartisii@gmail.com. But the easiest way, the quickest way to get us is on Facebook. Send us a message.
All right. Well, Robert, thank you so much for joining us, and we wish you best of luck during your campaign. And the next time we have you on the podcast, we look forward to having you on as elected school board for District 5 for Jefferson County School Board. So again, thanks for having us, and we look forward to keeping up with you throughout the rest of this journey, and best wishes to you.
All right. Thank you. Have a good evening.
All right. You too. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was our first guest for the evening, Mr. Robert Mardis. If you're just joining us, don't go anywhere. We're going to do some commercial breaks. And then our next guest, Tarji Ransaw, she is backstage ready to go, and she will be our last guest for the evening. So stay tuned, and we will be back shortly.
What's going on, gentlemen?
First Kingdom Records is going broke.
Redeeming Records reached out and...
You think I'd license my song to Caesar?
Mom, if we don't expand gospel, we'll end up irrelevant. I'm in charge of A&R. I scout talent.
You're in charge because I put you in charge.
Give it up for my wife, the queen of gospel music. I've been asked to hold a memorial for the Williams girl.
The dead stripper?
Danny loved music. Can someone explain the purpose for the pain? Deliver
Don't cuss me down with the centipede. Trample my enemies.
This girl work here? I just want to talk.
So talk.
Can we stop, please? You have a God-given gift.
You looking at it.
You have over 2 million hits. She's everything Kingdom needs. She can reach people that you never could.
You set me up?
You and my mom got history, but she's a star, right? Or am I crazy?
Crazy like I was the first time I heard your mother sing.
You know who I am, and I can't change that.
I don't care where you come from, only where you're going. Your reign is over.
Is that a declaration of war?
It's time to tell you a story.
District 9 is bringing Derby Day to Birmingham, and it's your time to show up and show out. Join us at the Inslee Tuxedo Ballroom Saturday, May 7th for the Derby Party presented by Counselor Latanya Tate. Come dressed to impress in your best Derby attire. Show-stopping hats and experience top-level entertainment, live racing on large-screen TVs, and, of course, high fashion. This event is free and open to the public. It's Derby Day, sponsored by District 9, Saturday, May 7th from 2 until 7 p.m. at Inslee Tuxedo Ballroom.
All right, so we are back after our brief station breaks. So you heard First Kingdom Business. Wanted to show that preview again because we were having technical issues on last week, but that stars Yolanda Adams, Michael White, singer and actor, Sanaya, and just a great people. If y'all have never seen Yolanda Adams act, it looks like she's going all in on this one. So again, that premieres on May the 19th. You do have to have BET Plus, so maybe we'll see how it goes, but we may have to come back on and do a review like we did for Bel Air. And also tomorrow, again, we'll be on tomorrow, same time from 7 p.m. till about 8:30. I guess tomorrow will be Miss Nina Taylor. She is running for State Representative, Alabama House District Seat 60. And we will also have the incumbent Representative Neil Rafferty, who is running for re-election in Alabama House District Seat 54. So you definitely want to tune in for that. And also, before we continue, just want to make sure that you are reminded, May the 9th is the deadline to register to vote in the upcoming May the 24th primary election. Again, May the 9th is the deadline to register to vote in the May the 9th in the May 24th election. And then May the 17th, that is the last day to mail in your absentee ballot. May the 17th is the deadline to mail in your absentee ballot. And then May the 19th, that is the deadline that your absentee ballot has to be returned by hand. May the 19th is the deadline for your absentee ballot to be returned by hand. And then May the 23rd, that is the deadline for your absentee ballot to be returned to the absentee election manager. We'll announce those deadlines again at the end of the show, but it's very important that we get this information out. Now, our next guest, very excited about her as well. So, and I said it wrong, Robert Mardis, he's actually running for District 3 and not District 5. Our next guest, Ms. Tarji Ransaw, she is running for Jefferson County School Board District 5. Tarji is a recent graduate of Miles College with a bachelor's degree in business management. She's a certified human resources specialist with over 10 years of experience in the oil and gas industry. Tarji has a 17-year-old son who's currently a junior at Huffman High School, where she's also a graduate, so have a fellow Viking. And Tarji is one of my newest actresses with Divine Vision Entertainment. So excited to have her on, ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Tarji Ransaw.
Hello,
Good
everyone.
evening, Tarji. How are you?
Fine, how are you?
I am good. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll start the same way we did with Robert. In a few brief words, tell our viewing audience, who is Tarji Ransaw?
Well, Tarji Ransaw is...
You muted, Tarji. I don't know what you hit.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Well, I'm Tarji Ransaw. Like you said, I'm a recent graduate. I'm a native of Birmingham, Alabama. I've been here, born and raised all my life, and just excited to, be a part of this platform and, help move Jefferson County forward and um, just, reach out with my community.
Awesome. So let's hit it. So in looking at Jefferson County School Board, there had to be something that made you say, you know what, I'm running for that seat because I believe our kids deserve better. What was that defining moment for you where you said, okay, yes, I'm putting my name in the hat. I'm running for that seat. This is going to be my seat. What was that defining moment for you?
Well, I'm a product of, the school system here. And like I said, I have a son. He currently goes to Huffman. So I just see a lot of things that are going on in the school system now. And I feel like, some changes need to be made and some, different allocations of the funds and et cetera. So I just want to, you know, help with the future of the students, because, they are our future.
Awesome. And we'll do the same way with you. We'll ask you questions. We'll have you on till about 8:30. And then after that, our last 5 minutes, viewing audience, if you have any questions that you would like to submit, go ahead and get your questions ready. You can go ahead and start commenting now, and we will definitely take the last 5 to 8 minutes, depending on the amount of questions that we have to ask Tarji those questions. The first questions, and your questions will be a little different, citing your background, as I'm aware that you have experience in dealing with budgets. But the first question to get us started, bullying. This is a conversation that you and I had offline, and I wanted to make sure that we talked about this. Bullying. If elected to this seat, what plans do you have in place to work with parents, students, and school employees to address the situation dealing with bullying?
Well, I, wholeheartedly feel that it should be an open door policy, and, students shouldn't feel, ashamed to, tell what's going on because, there have been statistics recently, basically for years, not just recently, where kids commit suicide because they're being bullied every day, and they're afraid to speak up. So I think something needs to be done about it, within the school. Some type of counseling, peer counseling as well. And, it just needs to be, like I said, for them to feel more comfortable to come forward to say things.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, it's definitely a problem.
Also, when we talk about bullying, mental illness, this is another issue that we're seeing with students younger and younger and younger. If elected, how do you plan to address the issue? And this is going to be a two-part question. How do you plan to address the issue with mental illness in our teachers and all employees in these schools? Because we talk about students, but a lot of these teachers and school employees, they do deal with mental issues as well.
Well, I think sometimes some mental illnesses are more severe than others. I think some type of psych evaluation should be, administered before you are hired to deal with children and that type of stress, especially depending on the school district that you're in. Some are um, a little more rigorous than others. So I think the psych evaluation, would be a great start.
Okay. And what about with the students?
With the students, there's signs. I think they should have, more mental awareness days, to talk about, the signs of mental awareness, and invite the parents, in as well so they can know what's going on. Um, and maybe, I know a lot of times I'm not able to, attend some meetings because, it's in the daytime. I work full time. So I think they should have some things in the evening, not at 5:30, because a lot of people work until 6 or 7. I know it's kind of, here or there, but I think, it should be multiple times or, alternate times, just instead of, in the daytime at, 9 or 11:30 when you're, at work. So, that needs to be addressed. And it just needs to be talked about. You know, it needs to be, you know, especially in the urban communities, you know, it's always you know, sheltered that you have a mental illness, and you know, it just needs to be talked about. And you know, there's nothing wrong with having counseling. It doesn't mean that you're, you know, crazy. Or, you know, a psychiatrist and a counselor are two different things. So it's always good to talk to someone, you know, other than, you know, family members. I mean, talk to them as well, but someone that's not biased. You know, so yeah.
Do you feel that extra resources and support should be brought into the schools when there is a known mental illness in teachers and in students outside of the guidance counselors that are already available at the schools?
Definitely, definitely some outside. Sometimes outside sources can be very, very helpful because sometimes we get in the habit of doing things one way, and sometimes it's not effective because you know we're forever changing. The culture is forever changing, and these kids are different than you and I were when we were growing up, and so forth. You know, so yeah.
All right. And moving on to our next question. So, in our schools, how do you plan to address the issue of financial literacy?
Well, I think that, you know, like when I was coming up, we had classes where we learned how to actually balance a checkbook. I think they should bring that back. You know, they need to, you know, talk about life, different types of life insurances and what you could do with them. Um, that should be in place too. You know, talk about, you know, there's not many companies that offer pensions, but you know, talk about the differences between pensions and 401ks, different types of accounts. I think it should be a more personal finance courses instead of you having to wait till you're on the, you know, bachelor level in school, because you know everybody's not going to go to, you know, college. You know, some people want to do a trade, some people want to go to the army, some people just want to work and build a career that way. So yeah, they should definitely be in place because you know, a lot of times these kids that graduate, they don't know how to, you know, properly, you know, balance a checkbook or let alone look at their account online to um, know how and when and understand when things are coming out, how their bank works, what questions to ask if they do have a bank account, about how many days they, you know, if you go to Burger King and you buy, you know, two meals, you know, two combos. How long is that going to take before it subtracts? Because you can
Mhm.
go, you can get paid, you know, and you know, you get paid maybe $1,800 every 2 weeks. You know, it's just hypothetical, and you know, you have your other bills and stuff, and you think you have money, you know, and you don't in actuality. Then your account is negative. Then you have to pay these $35, you know, overdraft fees. Some banks are higher, some are lower. So all that needs to be taught to these students so they could be ready. More life skills should be placed into the schools. I know a lot of schools they have like STEM programs and you know, some type of skill. Some have cosmetology. I think they should implement maybe um, esthetician program that's popular. Those people make lots of money, you know, in the spa industry. You know, that's just an example. So, you know, it's different things. I remember way back when I've heard about it. I wasn't, my father, when they were coming up, they had courses like with electrician. You know, you can get your electrical certification in high school. I think they should bring things like that back because
Mhm.
those, like I said, everybody's school is not for everybody. So yeah,
Absolutely. And
I
let's
know I
stop for a
kind of
moment.
got off the topic. I'm
Uh-uh,
sorry, but
those are some areas that I was going to go to, and I still may bring them back up, but that would be good for you to reiterate, but you're good. We know you're running for the seat of District 5 with the Jefferson County School Board. Kind of tell us what areas these encompass.
it's in the entire city of Birmingham, Homewood, Tarrant, Hoover, Mountain Brook, Vestavia, Leeds, Alabama. Did I mention Bessemer? So yes,
Okay.
and
So,
part of Center Point is kind of cut out depending on the zip code, but Birmingham.
okay. So if you're watching tonight and you're wondering, can I vote for her? She just mentioned your areas. We'll have her to mention those cities and communities and areas at the end of the podcast as well. So, with your human resources background, we know that a lot of teachers are experiencing burnout, and this, of course, is a result of COVID. But if we're honest, we even saw teachers experiencing burnout before COVID. But a lot of teachers say, I know that my goal was to try to do 25 years, but I don't know about that. With your background in human resources, what support would you provide to these teachers that could possibly keep them on the job or kind of change their minds about retiring or either seeking another field outside of education?
Well, some type of stipend. Money seems to, and it's in the budget. The budget is large enough with the Jefferson County school system. They should be, given some type of stipend because they work really long hours. They have a lot of things to entail, with the parents, complaints, meetings, staff meetings, after staff meetings. It's always something. You may, teach high school, you may get out 3:35, 3:45, that type of thing, but you may have to stay for some type of staff development meeting afterwards, and you're not getting home till 9, 10 o'clock. You're burned out. Then you have to get up, and depending on where you live, you may get up at 5, 6, 7 o'clock. I don't know. Then you have to start that all over again. Then you have, you know, teachers that work, basketball games, football games, concession stands, all type of things. They're really involved in their work, and they're very, very passionate, most teachers. So I think there should be, given some type of stipend that would start, with the burnout. That would help a little because, a lot of times money eases, you know, stress and whatnot. So yeah.
When we talk about support for teachers, also additionally, when you and I were coming up, there was nothing for a teacher to, especially in high school, they didn't have a class on a certain day. They didn't have a class on this day. They had a planning period. Now we're finding out that some teachers are reporting that they do good to have a 30-minute planning period. And as you just stated, some of the things that you stated, that's just not enough. When you think about grading papers, running copies if they need to, just different things in their class, even if they needed to meet with the teacher who couldn't possibly make it to the schools after school, that's just not enough. If elected, how could you work with your constituents to make sure that teachers had adequate time for planning, conferences, and that sort of thing?
We could create some type of program to assist the teachers. Say the students that they're the college students that are in school and plan to teach. They need hours, before they start teaching. So that could be implemented something similar to an intern, but paid. Like something similar to that, like a paid intern. And they could be a teacher's assistant of some sort and help. They can grade papers. They can go to some of the, meetings that they need to go to and kind of be, I'm not going to say such, something like a secretary, but I mean, it would help alleviate a lot of that. Like you said, those grading papers, midterms, and, getting report cards ready, meeting with parents about disciplinary actions. All that could take a toll on someone. And that goes back to what you and I talked about earlier, as far as, mental health and counseling and et cetera, to shy away from that and not lead to, you having anxiety because your job is so overwhelming. So, yes.
Absolutely. Go ahead and ask this question. This was one of the questions we had to come in before. This was something you and I talked about offline. So as we talked about with Robert, everyone knows that there is a school. It's actually a charter school. It's not a city or county school. The Magic City Exception School, which is particularly open to all students who identify as LGBTQ, but it is actually to any school who meets the criteria, and you apply. With the bill that is trying to be passed in Montgomery that would affect transgender students, what is your stance on that as a female?
Well, transgender people are people too. I don't mean, I'm not trying to compare, so I don't want anybody, coming for me after this or in the comments. But it's just, say for instance, like someone with a mental issue, they're people too. So you can't, treat them any different than, a heterosexual person or a person that's just, was born a man and wants to stay a man, or a woman that was born a woman and would like to remain a woman. People in their heart desire, what they desire. And if they want to change, then that should be their right. So I don't have a problem with transgender at all.
The part of the bill that says it would give a school the right to possibly out a child to a parent or guardian or whoever takes care of them if they were told or notified that they wanted to be transgender. What is your thought process on that?
Well, it really depends on the student and the situation. I think, that goes back to the counseling. You should talk to that student and see what's really going on at home, because some parents are very anti-transgender, trans, LGBTQ, etc. So you would just have to watch it, because it could turn to something volatile at home, and hostile. So you would just have to just assess each situation differently, because some parents will accept their child, as is, however they would like to be, whether they're, heterosexual, homosexual, or, transgender or whatever. So yes, I just know. It
And
just
then the
depends
third
on the situation.
and then the third part of this question, and we're doing this because this is how the bill would read it passed.
Mm-hmm.
Allowing or not allowing transgenders to participate in sports. What's your thought on that? And that would involve if you had a trans male sharing a locker room with a sex opposite of what they were born with. So yeah, we kind of want to talk about all that. And again, we're talking about these because these are important issues, and I want you, the voters, to know where your candidate stands on these. So go ahead in your own way, Tarji.
Okay, well, as far as a transgender sharing a dressing room or the locker room with a biological woman, it depends on, are they fully, trans, or do they still have extra parts? That goes into play. If they haven't, transitioned completely, then no, I don't think they should be in the same, locker room as the females, the biological females. But if they made a complete transition, no, I don't see a problem with it. Because there was an incident recently in a jail where they had a transgender person in the women's facility, and they impregnated two women, and it's been a big deal. It's been all over the news and on these blogs and etc. So, I mean, you just have to just play it safe. So yeah.
Okay. Next question. With the also another bill that is on hold that Governor Ali is seeking to get passed next year, that says if a child is not at a reading level of a third grader by the time they are to be promoted to the fourth grade, they could actually be held back in the third grade. What is your take on this?
I think they should have more, reading coaches and comprehension coaches, not just a reading coach, because you can read something, this is not for, everybody to box everybody in the same box, but a person can read something and not comprehend it. So if you had the comprehension coach, then, it would help. And these children wouldn't, get left behind. And that would be very hard for, a fourth grader to be moved up to the, another grade, to the fourth grade, and you're behind. You're going to struggle, and there's going to be a repeated cycle each grade that you're promoted to. So no, they should not be, passed on. They should be, coached and taking tests and etc. to pass to go to the next, grade.
Awesome. All right. The next question, our high school dropout rate. This just isn't a county thing. We've seen an increase statewide, worldwide. If elected, how would you work with your constituents to make sure that there is a realistic plan in place to curb the number of high school dropouts that we're seeing on average per year?
Well, like I said, a lot of times we get, in a pattern, and we're doing the same thing over and over and over. Well, like I said, everything is forever changing, and these students are different. They think different. They move different. We have so much technology in play. Just put more things in the curriculum that's relatable to the students and what's going on. More tech programs, slash STEM, things that they're into. So that would just help. Like I said, the esthetician stuff. Esports is popular out on the West Coast. They're already they have colleges. They've been sending stuff to my son because he's on the game all the time. And I guess he's made a name for himself. So they send him stuff all the time. So, just putting, small little things that, maybe do some type of survey for the students and see what they, like. I'm not saying take, the regular curriculum out, because you need all that, to survive, to get a job, to comprehend English, everything, math, etc. So yeah, I just need to just, do a survey with the students, take it, really, break it down, and then go from there, and, get together and, implement it in the budget and start some of these programs.
Okay, awesome. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're just tuning in, you are watching Perspective with the candidate. We're talking with Tarji Ransaw, who is running for Jefferson County School Board District 5, about her platform and some of the things she plans to work with her constituents to do to put into place if elected. The next thing I wanted to make sure I talked about was budget, again, with your background in human resources and being able to comprise budgets. When working with your constituents, how important is it that you think that creating a realistic budget that is made for students, teachers, and families, how important do you think it is?
That is the most important thing. That's one of the reasons why I got into this, and became a candidate for this school board. It's vital to have, all parties involved and to know what's going on. And like you said, it needs to be realistic. That's one of the things about making surveys and, meeting and, doing statistics, going back to see what was going on, what could have gone on, that type of thing, forecasting, all that, takes a play in it. And it's a big thing.
Okay. Free lunch. What is your take on that? And are you in favor of it being introduced and implemented in all those areas where students live in poverty? And just tell me, what's your take on that?
Absolutely. All students should eat free. I don't care what side of town you live in. I don't care if, you're in a demographic that's upper or lower. I think it should be free across the board. Because students, they can't concentrate if they're not fed. And just because, we know what goes on in some of the lower class areas, but even in the higher class areas, upper class, you may be living in a $500,000-$600,000 home, but mom and dad have to pay those bills, and sometimes you may not eat. So those are like realistic things that really go on. I know you do the surveys and the census and see what's going on overall, but what about in those gray areas? So I just feel like they should, just eat for free, because a lot of times students don't even eat when they get home. They don't have the food to eat. So I definitely think that should be implemented.
That leads me to my next question. Beyond the free lunch, what are your thoughts on implementing a program to curb the issue of child hunger? Because as you stated, a lot of children, when they go to school, for those that are only eating lunch, that's their only meal for the day. And then for those who have to arrive at school early to eat breakfast and lunch are those only meals. So how do you feel about a plan that could allow a child to receive a take-home meal care packet just to make sure they have foods. How do you feel about that?
I think that should be that's a good idea because like during the pandemic when it first hit, schools were doing that where people could drive up, pick up the lunches, etc. They could come up at a certain time and eat. So we know it's in the budget. So definitely that should be something that the students could take advantage of because we all know that like I said, some students they're hungry when they get home.
Transparency, that's something that we've heard over and over and over in school board races. Voters want a candidate who is going to be transparent about the issues and not shy away from them, even when they are what we would call not so good issues that we have to relay. How do you tend to be transparent and make sure that you don't leave your voters in the dark about any issues that you can relay? Because I do know, and we have to understand this, there's gonna be some things when Tarji's elected she just can't relay, but that information that you can relay, how important is that you are transparent, and how do you intend to be transparent throughout the course of you being on the school board?
I'm very approachable. So, if I'm out, I can have a conversation with anybody. So, if they want to ask questions, that's fine. We can have a conversation about it. You can also find me on Facebook, Tarji Ransaw. I'm, always, answering my inbox. So you can always, email me through that. Or you can email me at elect.tarjiransaw@gmail.com. And just stay up to date on what's going on with the information that I am allowed to, discuss.
Absolutely. And then next, we have about 10 or 12 minutes. And then those watching, if you still want to submit questions in the comments, you can. If you submitted a question before and you think of something else, you're welcome to do that as well. But that's how we would close out the segment with Tarji. Summer initiative programs. Over the years, even when you and I were in school, it was always a thing where teachers were frightened about a child that was promoted, especially in upper grades, that a child would come back to school after summer break and they have to reteach a lot of the things that they should have learned in the previous grade. How would you implement a plan that makes sure that a student, although they're having fun over the summer break, working, vacationing with family and their peers, what kind of plan would you put in place to make sure that they're still on track and on target when they excel to the next grade in the fall?
We should set up mixers, at their age level where they can do things that they can interact, that are, on their level, that are fun, but are also educational, throughout the summer that would help. So yes, that definitely needs to be something, because they go and they're gone for 2.5, 3 months. And yes, they may have brain fog when they come back, to get back into the routine, etc. Especially if they're not going to some type of summer camp or, something like that, or not working a job, So yes, definitely something to keep them active. And something to implement those life skills. Like I said earlier, I'm very big on life skills because, like I said, everyone is not going to college. It's some parents, they can't afford it, etc. So yes.
When you talk about schools, I know we talked about earlier, and you just said it, being able to present a model where students who aren't interested in college but are looking for a successful career, how important is it that you basically work to make all of the high schools career academies similar to what Birmingham City has?
It's vital, especially the way the economy is going. Um, you know, once it was you need a bachelor's degree to make X amount of dollars. Now you really need a master's degree. A bachelor's degree is becoming more so like a high school diploma. Well, it will be, in the years to come. So it's. I'm not saying it's losing its value. So because education is very important. That's another reason why I'm in this race. So yes, just life skills, and things that people could do, sewing, cooking courses, culinary, like you said, some of the things that Birmingham City schools have. So yes, I think farming should be one of the life skills as well. Farmers make a lot of money. Agriculture is huge.
For those students who are interested in going to college, I know that it's been this way for years. Students do have the option to do dual enrollment. And for those who don't know how dual enrollment works, you have the option if you qualify. Let me say that again. If you qualify and your GPA is where it needs to be, you can actually take college courses while you're enrolled in high school and already be receiving college credit. How important do you think that is to present that and to encourage all students to kind of set that as a model?
That is huge because a lot of times, back to the readiness of a child going to the next grade, the type of thing of no child left behind, etc. Then they decide that they may have no interest in going to college, and then they decide, okay, well, I think I need to go to college to do X, Y, Z. They kind of figured out what they want to do in life. So then they go take the test, and then they're not, qualified. They're taking all these remedial courses. Well, that could be discouraging to someone. So if we have the proper tools and a proper program set up into the high schools, then it wouldn't be a problem to go ahead and get these kids with a kickstart, where they could be taking these courses, and it could just be bypassed, and they can finish their careers earlier if they want to go on to get master's degrees and doctor's degrees, etc. So yes, or law degrees.
All right, I like it. Okay, our next question, funding for arts. This is something that we've seen continue to be declined year after year. When we talk about arts, we're talking about visual arts, theater arts, music, and not just limited to band. There are all types of choirs in high schools. Some schools have about 4 different choirs you can become a part of, even different bands groups, jazz band, classical band, all kind of things. How important is it that our schools continue to receive adequate funding for these types of programs?
That is something that needs to be passed. I feel like, that's one of the things I was saying. Some of the skills that that make money that are not usually in most schools. That the children are into. I mentioned the esports, and the esthetician because that's popular too. But a lot of kids or children, they want to be actors, actresses, singers. They want to know how to produce music. Producers make a lot of money, and I think that should be something that's in the schools. I'm talking about they make a lot of money, and you can do all type of production, whether it's music production, TV production. Like it's huge. I feel like it should be they have that on the West Coast as well, up in New York also. And I just feel like we should branch out and implement those things.
All right. And our final question, well, we're going to ask one more afterwards, but this was a question that was submitted earlier. What do you plan to do when elected different than the board member that currently holds the seat that you're running for?
Implement some of these programs that you and I have been talking about, and bring it up to the board, and then just go from there. So yes, those are my plans that I would do differently. I would do more things out in the community as well. It would be more visible.
All right, awesome. All right, our last question. So Mother's Day is on Sunday. You are a mom. Happy early Mother's Day to you. When you think about the relationship between you and your mom, kind of give you about a minute to a minute and a half, kind of talk about everything she means to you and how important a mother is in a child's life.
Oh, a mother is everything to a child. That's our first love, whether we're a female or male. Because that bond, with when conceived, it's inside of you. You're there from the start. So it is very vital. Me and my mom are really close, so she's very near and dear to my heart. We spend a lot of time together and we talk every day. So it is very important. I wouldn't be the person I am without my mom, basically. So I think it's vital to any child or any person that's growing up.
All right. Yes, indeed. So I'm gonna give you the last moment, and I'm gonna mute myself actually, and I want you to, in your own way, appeal to voters on May the 24th why Tarji Ransaw is the right woman for the job for Jefferson County School Board District 5.
Well, I am the correct candidate for the job for District 5, Jefferson County School Board. I've been here. I'm a product of the school system. My son, I have a son, he's a product of it as well. I just want to see it move forward and, get up to date with the times and just move forward with everything. So that we could just be more, Alabama students can be more competitive with students nationwide. I think that's a big deal. And I would even go so far to say competitive with students in Asia, because those children are really, really, really way ahead of everything as far as academic wise. So yes.
All right, good deal, good deal. And lastly, tell everyone watching how they can contact you if they're interested in volunteering with your campaign. We know there is about 22 more days until the 24th. I'm sure you could use people to canvas with you, and you're welcoming all donations. So basically, tell people how they can contact you if they're interested in doing anything to support your campaign.
I could be reached through Facebook at Tarji Ransaw page, inbox, or at elect.tarjiransaw@gmail.com, or a text through 205-265-1379. So yes, that's how I can be contacted, or anyone on the campaign if you would like to volunteer or help us in any type of way.
And we'll definitely be sure to attach Tarji's platforms in the comments if you're interested in volunteering. Tarji, I want to thank you for being a guest tonight, and we're looking forward to keeping up with your journey throughout the remainder of the election. And next time we have you on the show, we look forward to having you on as the newly elected Jefferson County School Board member for District 5. And everyone watching tonight, I just want to remind you that May the 9th is the deadline to register to vote in the May 24th primary election. So if you have a student that is a senior in high school, a lot of our seniors, they just turned 18, so they do qualify to vote. Go ahead and get them registered. Let them know that this primary is important. Don't wait till the November election. We need every registered person in Alabama, whether you're filing absentee or regular voting on the day of. We need you to vote. So get them registered May the 9th. And then also keep in mind that the last day to fill that absentee ballot via mailed is going to be on May the 17th. Then the last day to return that absentee ballot by hand is May the 19th. And if you're wanting to return that absentee ballot by hand to the Alabama election manager, you can do that on May the 23rd. This is the site where you can register to vote. We will actually leave that up through the duration of the show. You can actually go to that same site to find out your polling place. And I would encourage everyone to do that, because a lot of times in these elections that are critical, they will change your polling place, and you a lot of times won't know about it until the day of. So get that early start. Go ahead and confirm that your polling place is in the same. So we are excited about our upcoming election, and we all want to do our parts to vote. And tomorrow, again, we'll be back double duty for the next few weeks. Tomorrow, I will have Nina Taylor on, who is a candidate for District 60 state representative. And then we get comment Neil Rafferty. He will be on. He's running for re-election for Alabama House District Seat 54. So as always, I thank each of you for joining us tonight. Again, happy Mother's Day to all the moms. And if you're not doing anything, we invite you out to share with Counselor Latanya Tate in her district, and D9 Goes Derby. Again, that's going to be at the Tuxedo Ballroom in the beautiful downtown Ensley. The entire event is free. I will post the event on all my platforms, and you can contact the number on there for additional information. And as always, keep the faith, and I will see you all back tomorrow at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Have a great evening.